Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good.
Thank you for taking part in our project and granting us this interview. To begin with, could you say your name?
My name is Cong Thanh, or normally here people call me Tan Ho.
And if you can take us back to April 1975, before the end of the war, could you tell us about your life at that time?
Okay, so back in 1975, I was a fairly young uh, person that I joined the Air Force of the South Vietnam Air Force. Roughly about 2 years, I joined the Air Force January 1973, and after the basic training, and then I was trained to do air supply support, and I was stationed at the 6th Division of Air Force and serving at the Phuket Air Base in near Quy Nhơn, Bình Định. And then around the end of March 1975, you know, the collapse of the South Vietnam Army, and then so as part of that, we evacuated from our air base. So I got evacuated to Nha Trang, roughly around the March 31st, 1975. And at that point, Nha Trang is on the verge of collapsing, and the government and all the Air Force personnel are planning to, on that night, I still remember, once again I was evacuated from Nha Trang to Saigon. So basically Nha Trang and north of that were lost to the north.
What, during these evacuations, were you traveling with your troops, being transported, or were you, on your own?
No, we were as a part of the Air Force group from Phuket. We were evacuated as a group to, although we scattered, a number of us didn't make it, but we were evacuated by planes in some way. And then from Nha Trang to Saigon also, because we have the advantage that we are the Air Force, so we have airplanes for the evacuations. But most the armies or the rest of the other part of the armies, they evacuated in different ways and different means, and it's a lot worse than us. So April 1st, 1975, I was landed in Saigon, which is where my my hometown. Although my family originated from the north, but my parents moved to the south in 1954.
As part of the refugees,
Yeah.
refugees from the north.
Yeah, and then I was born in Saigon, grew up in Saigon, went to school in Saigon.
And your parents lived in Saigon at the
Yeah.
time. Were you living with your parents if you had you not joined the army or joined the Air Force?
Probably, yeah, but because I was stationed in an air base in the central region of Vietnam, so I was away. Yeah.
And how many siblings did you have?
I have altogether, including me, 10. Yeah.
And how old were you at this time?
I was the youngest, by the way. I was the youngest in the family, and I was 20. In 1975, I was 20 years old, fairly young.
And what were your memories of Saigon once you arrived on April the 1st?
Saigon was in chaos. That's the least to say. People know follow the news every day, and people know that Huế has collapsed, and Da Nang, and then Quy Nhơn, Nha Trang. So the war is progressing to the south, and then the North Army. At that time, they moved very fast to the south, and then the last battle is is was the the battle in Long Khánh, Xuân Lộc, where uh, um, there's a lot of casualties. I know that in that's the last battle, and then after that, they just walked right into Saigon, and with almost without resistance. Yeah.
Once you had been evacuated to Saigon, had you been decommissioned, or were you still
No,
part? Were you expected to join in any battle, any combat?
no, because a lot of military personnel that were evacuated from the central region to the south to Saigon as part of the Army, Air Force personnel. You are required to report to a station, to your superior, whoever that is. So the same for me. Although I almost like I don't have divisions to report anymore, but at that time I was told to report every day to the air base in Tanzania, in Saigon. So every day I just go there just to report that I'm here.
But they didn't need your services.
I don't have basically I don't have a unit anymore. I don't belong to any unit because the air base that where I was working is no longer there. Right? So I'm just using the Tanzania Air Base as a place to report that I am still here. Because in the Army, you have 14 days. If you don't show up for 14 days, then you are called AWOL. And then you get in big trouble.
And what happened to your family? How did your life change on April the 30th?
April 30th, at that time, we had my father and my mother was waiting to depart from Tanzania to wherever the U.S. take us. And then right on the 29th of April, that night, I went home to check on some of my nephews, and then to eat supper, and then I'm coming back to the airport. But right at that night, there was a lot of shelling, pháo kích. There's a lot of bombing and shellings, and then explosion everywhere in the airport. And so all the guards at the airport, they put up the barricades, and then nobody can get in, nobody can get out, and then anybody go near them, they will shoot. They don't care. They don't know who you are. So anybody approaching the gates, they will shoot. So I'm stuck outside, and my parents are inside, and they know nothing about the airport. They don't know where to go. So my brother is also was in the Air Force. So the two of us rode the Honda motorcycle around, trying to figure out a way to get into the airport. We know some sneaky way to get into the airport, but that day it's nearly impossible. And then there's a lot of shelling and rockets and things like that, explosion everywhere. So
the airport was the target.
yeah, I don't know if you know that, but after we lost the Da Nang airport, and then some of the pilots that belong to the South Vietnamese Air Force turned around and worked for the North. So they flew the A-37 jet planes to the south, to Tanzania, and bombed their own used to be friends. So that's April 30th, 1975.
That must have been a terrifying night with your parents trapped inside.
Yeah, and then I couldn't get in. So, and then the next morning, somehow, I don't know how, but my mother came home, and she's terrified and exhausted. And then I asked, "Where's my dad?" And she said, she said that he has to go, and only say that, and I don't know where he went. So after that, he just disappeared for at least 6 months. Yeah.
Did she know where he went?
Nobody knows where he went. Only that he told my mother that I have to go because if I stay, then I'll be in major problem with the new government.
Can you tell me why?
Well, because when he at that time he already a retired person, but before he retired, he served in the South Vietnamese government in different positions, in high-ranking positions. So if had he stayed back, then he probably in a lot of trouble with the new government of communists. So he told my mom that he has to go. And then after that, we didn't hear from him for at least 6 months. Yeah, and nobody know what happened to him. But later, when we got the news from my older brother in Paris that he telegram to us. At that time, there's no email or nothing, right? So they have to. So and then he telegrammed and say that we use a code and say that Dad is with him. Then later, many years later, we know that he went to. He used to work with the French government, and then so he speaks French fluently. So what happened is after he left the Tanzania Air Base airport, and he went to hospital Grand, bệnh viện Đồng Đất, bệnh viện Grand, the French hospital in Saigon, one of the best hospital in Saigon. And my sister used to work there too. She's a doctor there. So so he went there and he talked to some people at the French hospital. So and then at that time he had hoped that he can stay there at least for the safety of being in a fairly safe environment. But then the hospital staff told him that it's probably best that you go to the U.S. embassy just behind the hospital on Thống Nhất Street. So they kind of helped him to go through a back door or something, and then he managed to go to the U.S. Embassy. At that time, there's tons of people trying to get into the U.S. embassy to hope that to be picked up by some helicopters or something like that. So I don't know what he did, but he also he can speak French fluently, English quite good, and I think he talked to somebody right at the gate, and then he showed them some paper, and then they took him in. So he's one of those people who get on one of the helicopter on the top of the embassy, that you know that. And then there he was evacuated, and he got out right on time. So my mom and the two of us, my brother and I, we were left back in Saigon after 1975, April 30th. It's never forget the date.
So your mom, you and your brother were there. What happened to where were your other siblings at this time?
All my other siblings were either in France, two were in the US, and two were in Montreal. Yeah, three in France.
They had gone abroad for studies?
Yeah, like my oldest brother, he went to Paris and studied engineering there in 1952. So he's probably one of the earliest Vietnamese in Paris. Yeah. And then my two sisters, they went to Nancy, which is north of Paris, and studied pharmacy and dentistry there in 1972. Yeah. So I'm the youngest and probably not the best in the family in terms of studying. I didn't really study that good.
And you and your brother had both been in the Air Force.
Yes.
Were you sent to re-education camp?
No, like I said, I was not an officer or anything. I just barely joined the Air Force for almost 2 years, and then the war is over, so I didn't really have any high ranking. So I was basically, I have a piece of paper say that okay, I went to re-educated for 1 week. So 1 week later, they gave me a piece of paper say, okay, I fulfill my requirement, and then they leave me alone.
What about your brother?
Same, yeah.
And how did life change for you?
Well, I try to comply as much as I can with the new governments or the new way of living. Most people will try to be, or at least to show that they live a very modest, humble life, not flashing or showing that you are doing well, better than others. Then that's not a good thing. So most people will try to fit in. The same, we did the same thing too. But you can see that within 3 or 4 years, the government of the new government changed money twice, if you can recall that. Once around 1976, something like that, the first time. So each family can exchange for $200, right? Max, regardless of how much of the old money you have, how many $1 million of you have. They don't care. You are allowed to convert the max of $200 new money. So, of course, my family run into issues right away because we have money, right? And then after that, well, we managed to we get some ways to make extra money to make a living and live, carry on. And then in 1978, March 10. Why do I know exactly the date? I was married to my wife March 17, 1978, exactly 1 week before our wedding. They changed money one more time. You can see how horrible that is. I already gave wedding cards to my family, friends, and all that stuff. And then suddenly, a week before the wedding, and then now we don't have money. Again, they limit how much you can convert, exchange your money per family. But this time, because we were kind of prepared, so, and before that, my brother and I, we were kind of fairly business-oriented people. So we opened a shop to sell bicycle. At that time, a lot of people don't have gasoline, right? So a lot of people put away their Hondas and motorcycle, and then go and buy a bicycle so that you don't have to look for gas. So we know that's a demand, so we provide it, we do the supply. So the two of us were very successful. Opened a store on Levensweg, at the address 303B Levensweg. At that time, they changed the name of the street to Cách Mạng Tháng 8. So our store is very successful, and we make good money, and we have a lot of people come and buy bicycles and things like that. And then out of nowhere, one day, a bunch of guys just came and with AK-47, and they say, okay, they do the inventory kiểm kê, and then they kick us out. And they say, if everything now have a tag, you're not supposed to move, touch, or do anything to that. And then so all that were confiscated. And then they say, okay, the house now have a piece of paper tape right on the door, right? So you cannot open it anymore. So everything is in there, has to be intact. Nobody dare to touch it, and then we are kicked out of that. And
That was your house?
that's my sister's house in, she left for the US. And so the two of us look after that house, and we use that house to do business. So after that, we were kicked out, and we couldn't do business anymore. And then after that, we coping, and then I was planning to escape by boat, and then like I said before my wedding, one week exactly before the wedding, it's in March 1978, they have a second time changing money, and again it put a lot of southern families in chaos and hardship. A lot of people have most I find most Saigonese people are kind of not used to the hardship, and so they don't know what to do. They end up in flea market, like chợ trời, and trying to sell whatever left inside the house to get by, right? And I'm lucky that I don't have to do that. I still managed to attach away a few pieces of gold and stuff like that. So we managed to live and I got connected with some of my neighbors, and they were Chinese. And back in 1978, when they started to have issues with the war between Vietnam and China, so the Vietnamese government started to do quite a bit of discrimination against the Chinese locally in Saigon. So they accuse those are tư sản mại bản, like bourgeois, capitalists, ugly capitalists or whatever. And then so most of those Chinese families were forced to go to the new economic zone, vùng kinh tế mới. And like, imagine you were sent to a rural area and then say, okay, live and survive. And it's just unreal. So and then so at that time, that started the beginning of both people. So the beginning of both people in the late 70s is beginning with Chinese people being discriminated. And then along with that, there's the beginning of people who were forced to be re-educated, học tập cải tạo. And then a lot of people starting to realize this is the real true color of the new government. And so they try to find a way to get out of Vietnam, either by boat or by land, crossing the border from going through Cambodia, the killing fields, and then hopefully will reach Thailand. So different way of get out of Vietnam, different risk. So we chose the boat, and then so because I'm a true Vietnamese, I have no Chinese blood in me, but it's really hard for me to tag along the Chinese. So they have to do some paperwork for me. So they instruct me, the organizer instruct me that they will kind of do a little bit of paperwork so that it's show that I am Vietnamese, Chinese, and then same for my wife. And so after that we pretend we were Chinese. I remember I cut my hair very sharp and wearing thick glasses. Look quite Chinese. And then and that's planning. First, I thought it's only take a few weeks, and then, but it dragged on for over a year. Over a year. So after over a year, after many delays and issues with departing, and like organizing a trip like that is not that easy. You're facing with a lot of risk of being caught, put in jail, or you are facing another risk of being scammed by other people who cheat you, and you say, hey, we have a good boat and we have so that whatever, and then if you join the wrong group or a scam, then you lost your money and you may get killed too. So
can I ask you before you go on?
Sure.
At the time, the government was encouraging the Chinese to leave.
Not really encouraging, but they. I have to say that they semi official. That's the word. Bán chính thức. So they use the word bán chính thức, semi official. Allow people to leave without being interrupted.
So did that mean that the boats leaving did not have to do so in secrecy, that you can organize and plan, out in the open?
Our trip was, I still remember, I was departed. We departed in Chợ Lớn, right? Saigon, Quận 5. That's a Chinese district, the Chinatown of Saigon. And we have probably 2 or 3 big buses, set on, and then on the side of the bus there's a banderole and saying that welcome everybody to the new economic zone. Chào mừng quý vị đi vùng kinh tế mới. So everybody look at us and feel sorry for us that we were forced to go to the hard labor camp, right? Actually, that's not where we were going. So because all the people who are in the government all know this is the semi-official things, and they will not intervene with your trip as long as you pay your fee. So I was required. I don't know about the rest of the people in my boat, but the 2 of us, we have to pay 12 ounces of gold each. So the 2 of us, 24 ounces of pure gold, the 24 karat gold. And later I was told that the government people will get 4 for each. So the cost is 12 for us, and in that they will took 4, and I don't really know much about that part, but that's what we were required to pay for the organizer.
What happened next?
So after that, we left on the bus to go to the new economic zone, which is in the miền Tây, in the city of Long Xuyên and Cần Thơ.
In the west.
Yeah. And then so we went there, and then there's some plan change, and then the some of the local police didn't get paid enough or something, and then didn't allow us to depart from their port or something like that. And then so it's chaos. But for the Chinese people, mostly business people, they don't really care. They know they are allowed to go. They're not hiding or anything. It's openly know that they are going. So, and then, but for us, that we were Vietnamese, and then we blend into that group, so that we kind of worry that they may discover us, and then we get into trouble. But then later they probably bribed some officer to get a permission to depart from the port. So finally we were allowed to get the boat into the port of Cha Nóc, which is like suburb of Cần Thơ. That's our boat is anchored there at the sông Hậu Giang.
In the Mekong.
Yeah, on the Mekong River. And and then after that they start to get people on the boat, and our boat is about 18 meters, a wooden boat, fishing boat. That's I was told about 18 meters, which is from here probably to the end of that hall there. And initially we have about, including children, we have about 380 something people for that boat. To me, that's a lot of people on a wooden boat like that. But that's okay. People squeeze in just like sardine, and then all the Vietnamese in that trip. There's about 12 of us that are real Vietnamese. The rest are Chinese. So all the Vietnamese people, except my wife, she's with the baby. She's allowed to be in the cabin with the captain, because she's the only one with baby. Nobody travel in a boat like that with a baby.
How old is the baby?
A month and a half.
Oh.
We didn't have choice.
Yeah.
We get involved with this whole thing is before she's even pregnant, but things delay and many things get into the way, and then finally when things happening, we already have a son.
How did you feel about that? About the risks of having a 1 month?
Well, it's I was so young, and my wife was so young. We didn't really know how dangerous that is. We didn't know the risk of having our son killed easily. So the risk of being washed away or anything can happen. We didn't know. We were so young, and I don't know how to express that except I have to say in Vietnamese that điếc không sợ súng. When you
you can't hear when you're deaf.
Yeah.
You're not afraid of guns.
So after that we left that night and went through different issues along the Mekong River. After we left, they say, okay, everybody, all the Vietnamese people, the 12 of us, get down into the bottom of the boat because we don't want to be discovered, right? So after that, the boat went to the mouth of the Mekong River to get into the ocean. But right before we get out of the Mekong River, we were intervened by some local police in that region again, and they were very aggressive and very mean to climb on the boat, and they say everybody get out of the boat, and then lining up on they anchor the boat and then ask everybody to get out and lining up on the quay there. And then so everybody is so scared, and people try to explain this is semi-official, and then we got permissions to leave and all this stuff. They say don't be as us, you guys are being illegally escaped from Vietnam, that all kind of accusation. They're just trying to scare you, and what they want. So again, these organizers again fed them some money or some gold, something like that. I don't know. And something happened, and then they allow us us to go again, but with a condition. They say they have about 100 additional uh, guests to send along on our boat. So our boat at that time is almost overloaded, and they put in another 100. So we end up, our boat is way overloaded at 485 people.
Who were these people? Are they family members of your local police or?
No, that local police at Rexar, in the city of Rexar, they organize themselves uh, uh, some kind of escape deal with some people over there, but they do business without any mean or any tool. So they use us. So they took the money and the gold from whoever locally there wants to go, and then they force us to accept these 100 additional unwanted guests.
Have you heard of that happening elsewhere?
Oh, a lot. But for our boat, they put an extra 100, so that's a lot of people. So it's overloaded, and we were so scared, and we have no choice but accept it. And then so our boat left Rexar in a very rough sea. At level 4, the ocean is very rough, and I sat at the bottom of the boat. I can still hear the cracking of the side of the boat, the wooden boat. Every time it hit the wave, you can hear the cracking, and then sometimes it's the water seep in, right? Of course, the water seep in, and then everybody rely on the water pump to pump all the water at the bottom, to pump the water out, and then the water keep seeping in, and then the water pump keep pumping out. So after our boat left for in the middle of the night, it's very dark night. I remember, I think if I remember correctly, it's May 19. They say it's the birthday of Ho Chi Minh. For some reason, it's crazy. It's in my mind like that.
1979?
Yes, yeah, because I remember it's my son was born in March 12. Yeah, 2 months later, around May, and I remember they say we have to depart right on the birthday because it's a big celebration day in Vietnam, and most people don't have time and notice this thing. So our boat left and heading to the ocean, very rough ocean, but for not too long, and around, I remember around 4 or 5 a.m. on the old ocean, lots of people are throwing up and you know, that kind of things. And then our boat was kind of not running very well because the boat had 2 water pumps. One water pump was not working, start to fail, and then so we kind of go slow, and then the captain said, okay, we will kind of park around near the Ulukondor Island, Gondar. So they anchor there for the night because they need to repair something, right? And then the next morning we plan to continue, and then so the next morning it was just out of nowhere. Suddenly we we heard a lot of shootings, um, gun gunshot I heard everywhere, and then we were surrounded by about three of the fishing Vietnamese fishing boat. It belonged to the Vietnamese quốc doanh đánh cá côn đảo. So they are fishermen, government fishermen, belong to the Bulacan Island.
It's like a government fishing cooperative.
Right. Yeah. But they are armed with M16 and AK-47, and they are very aggressive. They jump right onto our boat, and then one of their boat hit the side of our boat and broke a part of the boat. So they want to scare us, and then they I remember that guy. He's very chubby, and he wore a short and didn't wear shirt, just a kondui. He's kind of black, and then he jumped on it with a handgun in his hand, and he shot into the air. And then after that, he said that he asked, "Who is the organizer? Come here," right? And then the chủ tàu organizer came, and then they kind of saw him begging for mercy, and then he threatened to kill her right instantly, and then he put the gun to her head and all that. Very scary.
His head, the organizer's head?
Yeah, and then his people from the other fishing boat jump onto our boat, threaten us, and with all kind of guns and shooting in the air and all the things. Everybody is so scared. And then after that, he said, "You guys are living for a better life. You don't need gold. You don't need watch. You don't need rings. You don't need earrings. You don't need anything." So he threw a few gold hats, not land, on the floor, and he said, "Okay, I want you guys to fill these hats with all rings, gold rings, diamond rings." And then he said, "If I see anybody who's still wearing that, I will kill that person instantly right here." So everybody take off, right? Including me. My mother before leaving, my mother gave me one of her very nice watch, Lung Chin. Lung Chin is a very good name, and then that's the gift my mom gave me, and so I took off real quick and I gave it to the things. So, and then after that, that guy, he took the only compass. You know, when we at sea, you rely, and your life is depend on the global compass. I don't know much about the Navy, but we have some extra compass, the land compass, but with navigation in the ocean, you need a global, right? It's like a globe, and we only have one of that to so that it will roll around, right? And that pirates group, they took that one from us, and then after that we just had a lot of problems, yeah. And then after that they left with all the goodies they took from us, and then with that too. and they left, and the boat could not go on because they cracked the side of the boat. They took the navigational compass, and then one of the water pump was not working, so the boat need to be repaired. And then so at that night, the boat was anchored near one of the islands near Côn Đảo. Côn Đảo is not one island, okay? It's a lot of little things. And then the next day we said, okay, we have to go into Côn Đảo and our boat, because if we continue to go on, we will all die. So we went into Côn Đảo, and then we showed them the paper, say that we are Chinese and semi-formal or semi-official travelers. And then again, they are very nice. They say, okay, you go in and fix your boat, get some more water and things like that, more food, and then pay. Everybody pay. Again, so whatever left, believe it or not, after the robbery from those guys, people still manage to have some left, including me. I still have some gold rings that I hid. So, and everybody have to chip in one mochi.
Where did you hide your ring?
Oh, it was just different places.
Even though that guy threatened to kill anybody?
Everybody still have to hide a bit, otherwise it's just like that. And so everybody now have to chip in one ring. So I put in one ring to buy some more safety, and then so the boat was repaired. It turned out that the water pump was not functional because the water pump sucked all the water at the bottom of the boat into the water pump, but because some women put their menstruated hygiene ban or whatever in Vietnam, they don't use the tampon tampax here. They use big things, cotton bag or whatever. So and they throw to the side of the boat, and then it get pulled down, flooded, and then sucked into the water pump. And that's the reason why the water pump tube get completely blocked, right? So I remember they took the water pump out to fix it, and then they say, look at this thing, right? It's all blocked with that kind of things. And then so they remove it, and it works again, beautiful. So now they beg people, please, ladies, throw that thing down into the ocean. Don't put to the side of the boat. It gets sucked into the water pump. So one lesson learned. And then after 2 days repairing the boat, and we pay them, and then they let us go. But their intention was bad, very bad. We asked them to, after fixing the boat, we asked them to let us go when it's sunny and beautiful, and they said, no, you're not allowed to go yet. And then on one afternoon, when the ocean was level 4, it's very rough sea.
What's level 4?
Sóng cấp 4. See, so, and then they say, okay, you guys can go. So after that, get on board, and then we departed again. In that
Who,
group.
who were these people that were making that kind of decision? They were
Local police.
local police
On the island.
of the island.
Of the island,
And they've already gotten you money. What was
you still
their
in
intention?
I think they still have very bad vibes about these people. To them, these are capitalist bloodsucker, whatever they think us. So I think their intention is, if you die in the ocean, that's fine. It's none of their concern. So I remember they allow us to leave one afternoon when the ocean was very rough. Yeah, level 4, and it's very rough. And lucky that the boat kept going, and then we went after 12 days. Normally from Vietnam to the neighboring countries, it shouldn't take more than 3 days. But we didn't have the good compass. We were in bad shape, so we floated for 12 days, and the captain was not very experienced. That's fairly a norm during that time.
But you still had the land compass.
Yeah, but the captain was not experienced, and he's kind of lost. But lucky in the 12 Vietnamese of us, one of them was a Navy officer that he was trained in the U.S.
Can I also ask, like, so straight down south and southeast, 3 days from Vietnam to Malaysia?
Yeah.
Usually, right? Maybe straight down south and to the east a bit, then it's, what, 5 days to Philippines to...
Yeah, I don't know
what
speed and why is it wandering like that.
But your engine was still working.
Yeah.
It wasn't that you were adrift.
No, it's still working, but I don't know about what speed and why is it like that, and then for 12 days, like in total.
At what point did you become alarmed?
No, it's probably about halfway, probably about six days or so. Everybody is worried that not seeing any land, nothing. It's just turned around 360 degrees. They are all water, it's just ocean, and everybody is arguing and nearly fighting. And then finally, in at the bottom of the boat, one of us, he's the Navy officer. He's trained in the U.S. And so he popped up and he said, "Let me try and see if I can locate our positions, and then we'll see from there." So after some calculation or whatever he did, and then he said, "Well, I think we should turn this way, about 90 degrees, and turn this way, and then heading that, hopefully in a day or so you should see some land." So at that point, everybody is desperate, so say, "Okay, let's do that." And then he said, "I'm a Navy officer for the Navy of South Vietnam." So, and then the captain, he's just an old guy that do fishing things along the coastal, not really international water, so he didn't really know much about that.
And during those 12 days, did you see any ships, cargo ships, freight ships going by in the international waters?
I don't. I was at the bottom. I didn't see anything. And I was really sick too. I had a fever and all that. So after that, they went for a day or so, and then still didn't see anything. And I still remember, everybody turned to that Navy officer and say, "You said one day later, why there's no land, right?" So he said, "Well, that's my estimate, based on my estimated location." And then he said, "But please continue to go in this direction." He strongly believes that's the direction to go into land. So everybody is yelling at him and criticizing him. But they didn't have a choice, so they continued to go for another day. I think another day or two. Finally, one morning, somebody screaming like crazy. They saw a bird. They saw a bird flying somewhere, and then that's the first sign of land, because the bird cannot fly forever. They have to land somewhere. So they say, "There's a bird," and that's the hope. And people are very happy, and then we kept going in that direction until in the middle of the night, suddenly we were intercepted by the Malaysian Coast Guard. Yeah, the Coast Guard. They use the speaker and they say, "Okay, you are invading the Malaysian water, so get the hell out there." Right? They're very, very mean. And then here, the same thing happened. Probably for everybody, we all have a piece of band cloth, white cloth with SOS, and then we are refugees and whatever. So we bring that up, and then after that, the Malaysian officer jumped onto our boat, and then they slap a few guys. I don't know why they want to show power or something. They slap a few guys that in their way, and then we were treated like a piece of shit. And then after that, everybody say, "Okay, who knows English? Go up and talk to the Malaysian guy." So the Navy officer guy, he said, "Okay, I know English. Let me talk to him. I am also a Navy guy." Right? So he went up and he tried to speak to that Malaysian Navy officer, and then they hit him right away. Very unbelievable. Like they want to show power or something, and then they say, "You shut up," and then they slap him, and they broke his glasses. I still remember later on in the refugee camp, I ran into him, and he's always wear the glass with one eye.
They punched him in the face.
Yeah. And then so after that, everybody on the boats criticize him, say that you don't know English, you didn't know how to talk to him, so that's why they hit you. And then they criticize him. It's very sad. And then after that, my friend, he's older than me. He the guy that in the picture with the things. He's an electrical engineer, and he also speaks English fluent. So he said, "Okay, let me try it." So he went up and he tried to speak English slowly to that guy, and he almost got hit too. But then at least he didn't get hit. And then he's explained that we are Vietnamese refugee looking for a piece of at a place we can land, and we run out of gas, run out of water, run out of food. And then the guy said, okay, we'll wait for higher authority to make a decision. Remember, in 1979, it's a beginning of the boat people um, event things. So after that, they make us wait for a while. They throw down from their ship to our boat a bunch of breads and waters and things like that, which was really in need.
Your water and your food had indeed ran out?
Yeah, yeah.
For how long by this time?
I know that I didn't get any food at all until that night, and then so some of the sandwiches, just plain bread, but it's so good, and then some water, and then we waited until the next morning, and then the next night, and they get some instruction from higher authority that they will pull us back to the ocean. In 1979, all the first batch of boat peoples, we were all pulled back to the oceans. We're not allowed to go. At that time, there's no Pulau Bidang. There's no refugee camp inside Malaysia, not yet.
Yes, it was.
So at that time, everybody who get into Malaysian water, the Coast Guard were instructed to pull us back into the ocean at their speed. And that's a very dangerous thing. So they throw a rope in and ask us to tie to the front of the boat, and then they pull us out. So they are a big battleship, right? And then they pull us a little wooden boat. So the wave from the back of the boat is enough to kill you and to capsize the boat. So everybody is so crying and screaming. I remember that moment. Even now, if you ask my wife, we both say that, what did we do? I told my wife, what did we do? Why did we bring our son here to kill him? We all died tonight. And then we pray. Later, I became a Buddhist. And lucky, our boat didn't capsize, and we survived. So after that, the Coast Guard captain, we wanted to cut off the rope because it's so dangerous. We almost capsized, and then everybody's screaming. So the captain of the Coast Guard ship used a megaphone and ask what's wrong, and then we say, you are going to kill us. And for some reason he had the last minute change of mind or something. So he slowed down, and then instead of left us in the ocean, he pulled our boat all night to a remote island in Indonesia. So he passed the buck to Indonesia, and he ran like crazy. So after he chopped off the rope, and then we realized that in the middle of the night, we are very close to an island belong to Indonesia. And that's our trip ended peacefully in Indonesia. Can we stop?
What happened next?
Well, so after that we were we met an Indonesian boy on his little sampan boat, and then he climbed on our boat, and he asked for some gift, and then he will show us the way to the local government of Indonesia. So after that, he gave us the direction, and we follow his direction to go to a little fishing village called Letung, Letung, and there's a local police there. There's a few little wonderful convenience store where they sell cokes and apple and all the good stuff. And then so we landed in the tomb, and the village people are very friendly, very helpful, and each village family kind of took us in. So the whole village took all of us, 400 something people, into their family, and then they gave us access to water so that we can take shower after 12 days on the oceans. We got people throw up on us and pee on us. And you can see how horrible the hygiene that is. So we took a shower, and then we after that they fed us with instant noodle. Instant noodle to that at that point it's almost like a food from God. Oh, like for us, something hot and soupy. It's so good. And they gave us some Indonesian dust tea. Indonesia people, they have tea dust. It's very interesting. And so we had some tea with sugar, and it's really helped us. So after that we recovered. We had a good long sleep for a day, and then 2 days later, I think, we were transferred to another island, and that island is called Area. I don't know if my spelling is correctly, but that's how I remember. Area is like that. And
you were taken by boat or by
yeah,
foot
yeah,
or by boat?
yeah. Travel between islands, it has to be by boat.
On your own boat or
Yeah.
their boat?
Yeah, on our own boat, and then so they give us instruction, and then they guide us to go to the island called Area, and then so our boat was, there's no dock for us to land, so the boat was anchored probably about 200 meters from the shore, and then so some of the guys jump off the boat, and then I can see the water is about this deep, so I can say, okay, this is a little bit deep for me, but I can swim, so it's okay. But my wife doesn't know how to swim. So after that, we waited for everybody to get off the boat, and then they swam into the shore, and then I jumped off the boat, and then I was kind of managed to get my mouth up above the water, and then I put my hand up like this, and then somebody handed my son into my hands, and then I kind of flip-flop get to the shore with my son on above my head. And then after that, I went to back to the boat to get my wife. She was terrified of water. She doesn't know how to swim, and she saw that the water is way almost over my head. So, and I told her, be calm and just hang on to my arm, and then we'll be fine. So it took her a while to jump, and it's one of her terrifying experience, and it's an unforgettable memory for me as well. I was wearing the little short. The only clothing left that I still have is that short and a shirt, and the rest of my luggage somebody stole. And so after that, I have my wife hang on to my arm, and then we kind of walk to the shore, and I didn't notice that my short got so wet, soaking wet, and it's gonna slip there. I almost naked. I didn't even notice that. And at that point, I don't really care. And then somebody at the shore say, anh Thanh, em chỉ cắm. And that's somebody arrived to the island about a few days before us, and she's a friend of my wife. They went to high school together. Oh, later I was embarrassed that I almost naked. But then, who cares? Right? At that point, you live, and you know this is the end of the trip, and it can only be better from here. So after that, yeah, we settle in there. There's no house, and then the picture that I sent that you saw, that we built the house with a kind of trees, almost like some kind of look like palm trees, but it's small, giống như cái cau ấy. They call the jala. I don't really know the name of that trees. It's everywhere on that island. So we went to the forest and chopped down those things.
So this island was abandoned. Nobody.
No, there's nobody lived there.
Nobody lived there.
Nobody lived on that island. At that time, Cuckoo is completely not a soul there. And then after they fill area completely, and then they say, okay, we run out of room in area. Then they open the next island, which is Cuckoo. So yeah, so we bought some knife and cái rửa. I don't know what to call that. Some chopping stuff. knife, and then we use that to chop down some of that kind of trees, and we make it. We build our home.
Can you describe that home?
Basically, it's about 6 meter, a square, probably, or a rectangle size of a small, tiny house, tiny hut. It's a hut with some posts, and then we use the leaves from the palm trees to I remember the 3 women make them live with. So we built a palm trees wall to shield the wind from blowing into our home.
The women wove the leaves, the
Yeah,
fronds together
yeah.
for the
Yeah,
walls?
just do this, do that, do that. And then so we do that. And then we build the only bed that the 9 of us slept on that bed, because lucky that my friend's family, he brought along a net,
Mosquito net.
yeah, mosquito net, and then so that's the only net we have, and that's probably one of the rarest thing on that island. Nobody have net, and we have net. And one of the horrible thing on living on the island is after you cook rice and you have your food, you cook some fish or something like that, and that attract a lot of flies, right? Big flies, and it's a battle to eat, fighting with the flies, because the fly is everywhere. So lucky that we have the mosquito net. So every time we have supper or lunch or whatever, we have rice and we have some fish or something like that, and then we say, okay, it's time to eat, and then we put everything inside the net, and then everybody climbed into the net. The 9 of us sat all together around the pot of rice and the pot of fish, and then we ate inside the net.
So from that moment where you were at Arayat, how long was it before you were interviewed by UNHCR or by other countries for resettlement?
Yeah. So after area, we were interviewed right on that island with the French group, and then I think I applied to Australia, and then the U.S., and then I didn't apply to the Canadian yet. And then after that, we waited because everybody wants to go to the U.S., and then I was in the Air Force, so I was qualified for applying to the U.S., but the wait was too long, and I was fairly sick because I had pneumonia. So at one point I said, okay, I also want to apply to Canada as well. So since my sister in Regina, Saskatchewan, she said that since I'm having issues with pneumonia, and she said the sooner the better, get out of the refugee camp where the condition is not that ideal.
Were you at the refugee camp at this point?
Yeah, so after, I don't remember exactly, but after about 6 months, we were transferred to Pulau Galang. That's where the main refugee camp, where they processing the immigration paper, and also they do the health check prior to entering Canada. So there my sister privately sponsored me and my family to Canada, and then shortly after that, I went to Montreal on May 16, 1980. So we landed in Montreal at the CFB Long Point, and so there we had a little bit of experience, funny memory to remember about the shower incident where all the women turned on the hot water and didn't know how to turn it off. So the military guy has just asked anybody who can please explain to me what's going on in there. So, and then he asked me to go in and tell the woman that to just get out there, and then so he can go in and turn off all the hot water, because people turn on and then it's steamy everywhere, and then nobody know how to turn off the hot water. So that's the thing. So after about 2 days or 3 days at the CFB in Montreal, we all scatter everywhere to our sponsorship. So among the 200 something people that settle in Toronto, we are the only 3 that going to Regina, Saskatchewan. So on the same plane that we went to Toronto, again, after the plane landed in Toronto, Pearson, the flight attendant asked me, could you please explain to me why these people are supposed to get off the plane but nobody move? It's just that this is the first time for many people that going to a new home, and nobody knows who's going where and who's going to be picked up by whom. So after that, I got the microphone and say, okay, everybody, please, this is your final destination. Please get off the plane. So a lot of people rushed to the door, and then people that's it for people who settle in Ontario. They all get off the plane from there. And then just the 3 of us went to Regina, at a fairly small town in Saskatchewan. The plane circled in the sky above the airport, and I just didn't see anything other than just the plain field of weeds everywhere. And then so I settled in Regina for 6 years. I went back to school. I took the English basic course for 3 months during the day, and at night I worked in a restaurant, just to do kitchen help, just to make a living. After 3 months living with my sister, we are on our own, and I work at a restaurant, and my wife worked at a chemical factory. She had a background in chemical technology, so right away she found a job at at that manufacturer to make shampoos and battery acid and that kind of sort of things. So
She didn't learn. Did she go to school for ESL?
no, she didn't have time to do that. So she's just learning on the job, and then survive with her probably a little bit of sign language. And so her English is not that great at that time, but she is the one who bring home the check, and she's the main breadwinner. And then I went back to, I worked part-time, and I went back to university, of course with a lot of barriers and difficulties to get into university. The registrar didn't give me admission, so after many appeals, and then they gave me conditional admissions.
Because was it because you had to do test for
the English part, they require me to do the TOEFL tests and all that. I didn't get the score required, and then so they say, okay, you have the other option is have complete the English grade 12 English 30 A and B, the two courses. One is literature and compositions and something like that. And it's very hard for me to learn, you know, a Vietnamese guy like me to learn about poetries, about Chaucer, about Shakespeare's the sonnet, 14 lines, how do I love thee, those kind of things. It's very hard, and but somehow I managed to get through, and I got admitted to university, and I did really well in university. Probably because I took the most of the electives course where my strength are. So I'm good in math. I'm good in French. So I took those for electives.
And your bachelor was in what line of work? Was for what line of work?
I graduated from University of Regina for a Bachelor of Lab Science, Lab Technology. So after that, I got a intern training position at Saskatoon City Hospital, and I was there for a year or so, and then after that I got a full-time job in Edmonton. So during the year that we were in Saskatoon, my wife didn't have to work anymore because I got paid. So she went back to school and fulfilled her diploma in chemical technology. So that now, when I got a job in Edmonton, I moved to Alberta, and she had to stay back to finish her courses. So we lived apart for almost a year, and then after that, my wife and my son joined me in Edmonton in 1986. So after that, we settled in, and right after a few months, my wife got a job with EPCOR, a very good company where she worked in different positions, mainly in microbiology. She's doing all kind of water testing for the city of Edmonton. And after 30 years of service, she just retired about 2 years ago. And I am, after working in the medical lab field for over 12 years, I changed career and becoming an accountant. So first I went back to school and I finished accounting. I got a designation in CGA, and then after my CGA, I went on and become a CPA. And I worked as a controller for Avatar Report magazines, and then after that, a few years later, I worked as a controller for a company that producing caster and wheels for industries. A few years later, about 6 years later, I want to be on my own, so I formed a company and to serve the public. Mainly my clientele are Vietnamese business people in the Vietnamese community here. I have a number of Canadian local business people as well. So I'm very happy to be active in not only the Vietnamese community, business communities. I also has been a part of the Vietnamese community here. I am the president of the Vietnamese Buddhist temple in Edmonton here. It's called the Chùa Phật Quang, the Phật Quang Temple. I've been the president there for probably 7 years now. I find peace and inner peace at the temple. I got along really well with the people, and every chance I have to support all the members of the Vietnamese or all the members of the communities, I will help to not only help them, but I also play a very active part with the Edmonton Vets Association. If you look at some of the Vietnamese New Year events, you will see that I am usually the MC guy. I do the MCing, and sometimes I participated in the heritage, the mosaic, those kind of events, and also I involved in different charities. I sat on a few boards of directors for some non-profit before, and now I don't have time anymore. I'm 64 years old, 1 year away from my retirement. I probably don't want to retire completely, but I will slow down a little bit. Hopefully I will have more time to do more volunteer work for the communities in general.
Can I just ask you to go back to the very first few weeks and months in Regina very quickly? Apart from your sister and your brother-in-law, was there anybody who helped you settle in? Any government agencies or representatives, or?
Well, because it's a private sponsorship that my sister sponsored my family, so we are totally on our own. So we don't rely on or get any financial help from any government agency or anybody or any churches like that. So that's why after 3 months living with my sister, I moved out and I got a job right away. It's not the best job at the restaurant, but I'm very happy to earn some income and to pay for bills.
And did you have to pay for your ESL?
No, lucky that we applied for the ESL course, and at the time the government gave me that free access to the course. They just add me to the list, and then so I was get that English training free. Yeah.
And looking back now, when did you feel at home in Canada?
I feel at home right on the May 16, 1980, when I received the letter, the piece of yellow sheets, immigration paper that all landed immigrants all have the yellow sheet of paper. And then for us, Vietnamese refugees, our nationality was clearly stated that we are stateless. So we don't have a state, we don't have a nationality at that point. Người vô tổ quốc. And so here, Canada is a home country that took me and took my family in. This is definitely home to me. Even now, if I have a chance to go back and visit Vietnam, where that's the birthplace for me. It's a place where I was born and grew up and went to school with lasting childhood memories. But it has has not been my home since I left that country in the horrible night by boat. Vietnam is the place for me to visit, but it's not a home. This is home right here in Canada.
What were some of the obstacles and struggles that you faced as you settled in?
Of course, it's a language barriers. Everybody have different level of difficulties in getting understanding, speaking the language. We all have some problem listening to English, or comprehension is a little bit limited, and most of us we all have a little bit of accent problems, and then we pronounce the word incorrectly, not, and sometimes we get misunderstood by Canadian people. The first few years, probably for me, at least 3 or 4 years, I need that time to really arrange. Every time I plan to start a conversation or plan something, I always have to arrange things in my head first, and then I plan what I'm going to say, and I expect what they are going to reply to me, and then that's go on, and then up to a point after I got some, after my training at the hospital in Saskatoon, I start to become a little bit more natural. I don't really have to think to reply, to answer questions, or to start a small chit chat communication with patients. I start to watch TV. I watch TV a lot. I learn a lot of English, daily speaking English from the Three's Company show. You know, those shows, and then General Hospital, watching soap. Sometimes I learn English from TV a lot. So yeah, that's the common barrier that most of us we all face something like that.
And what were the factors that helped you integrate?
To really overcome the fear of not understanding what people are saying, or being misunderstood by the Canadian local people. That's one of the things that I have to overcome really fast, and I realized that if they don't understand me, I will ask them which part of my conversation that you don't understand, and then usually I slow down a little bit. Sometimes I get nervous. I used to get nervous, and then I speak very fast, and then people don't understand me. But later I learned that I can actually speak really fast, but people still be able to understand me now, because I kind of get the way they chat to each other, and then I get used to it.
So looking back, what are your thoughts about Canada's humanitarian reaction to refugee crisis?
I can relate to the most recent Syrian people, especially here in Edmonton. We have one of the group that I occasionally help to, a group organized by Dr. Nhung Davies. Yeah, she's a very good person. She was a refugee in the 80s as well, and then she grew up to be a doctor, and then herself, just recently sponsored a family of from Syria, and I can relate to that, and I hope I can make some help, despite of the many differences in religions, differences in opinions, political points, point of views. I set aside all of that because I don't judge. I don't want to be judged when I came here. So, and then now I can relate to people who are destabilized from their countries, uprooted from their hometown. Nobody wants to be uprooted. Nobody wants to leave their hometown unless really there has to be some force that's strong enough to make people leave. And then if you cannot relate it, then or help, then at least don't judge. That's my position.
And how do you feel about the life that you and your family have made here in Canada?
I feel very positive, and I'm very proud of after 40 years or more living in Canada. My family and we have always been contributing members of society. I never received or asked for any help from any government agency, other than what's available to the mainstream that we are entitled to, for example, child care benefits, that kind of things. But I never asked for any extra help or any additional help from any government agency at all. And I'm very glad that I don't need to. I'm very glad to be a taxpayer. I wrote many articles in different magazines about tax matters and things like that, and it's always that my point is somebody have to pay tax to pay for the hospital, for the roads, infrastructure, and so because I realized that somebody after all have to pay for the bills, and if we are a taxpayer, we should do our part.
And do you discuss your experiences of war and resettlement with the next generation?
Yes, I actually took my children back to where they were born in Vietnam, and then from there, it's almost like a case of recovery, lost identity, especially for my son. He's 41 years old now. He's the one who was on that boat trip, horrible, in 1979, and he was 1 month and a half. Thank you somebody up there that looked after him, that he didn't die in that trip. And he started to learn Vietnamese, although his Vietnamese is not very good. But he bought some Vietnamese books and started to learn, and he can understand and communicate a little bit of Vietnamese because he grew up. Most of his 7 years in Canada, he stayed in daycare most of the time. We didn't have the luxury to keep him home. So most of the day, his day with daycare workers, Caucasian people, and then he didn't really have a chance to learn English, Vietnamese when he was young. But now he started to realize his root and his culture, and he got married. He went back to Vietnam with his Canadian wife, and they really enjoy it. Yeah.
And what can future generations of Canadians, including your children, learn from your personal experience in Canada's Southeast Asian refugee program?
If I can wrap it up in one word, I probably will choose the word perseverance. Perseverance is persevere is the word that despite many difficulties for a newly arrival, um, we all face some difficulties in life, and sooner or later we'll run into difficulties, financial, emotional, but we have to overcome that. And if we fails on something, then we pick ourselves up and continue persistent and never afraid of being of failing. Um, to say that is because I went through a lot of difficulties. It's not just that suddenly everybody is setting up all kind of nice thing for me. No, it's not that easy. Um, so for the future generations or new immigrants from anywhere around the world, especially in this very chaotic, unstable world, if someday somebody is coming to Canada or becoming a Canadian, still facing a lot of hardships, I think you are in a very good countries that provide you a very good environment for growth and for success. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your stories with us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.